We should have done this years ago, sneered Counselor Threx. His tendrils twitched as he watched Earth's transmission fade to black. No plea, no compromise. Just that stubborn human phrase, "We decline." The grand chamber of the Galactic Council pulsed with quiet satisfaction. The circular hall echoed with the low thrum of interspecies mutters, each language translated in real time, each delegate sharing the same smug certainty. "They are children playing with fire," declared the Evor ambassador, his crystal tongue clicking disdainfully. "It's time they're reminded who controls the galaxy's warmth." Chancellor Velru rose. Her robe dragged like smoke behind her as she addressed the gathered elite. Earth has rejected trade alignment, refused fleet conscription, ignored cultural integration. They are the only remaining world to stand apart. A murmur of feigned surprise swept the room. She continued, voice sharpened with venom. "And so, they will pay." The resolution was signed within minutes. A full-scale embargo. No food shipments. No quantum drives. No access to the Galactic Archive. Earth would be digitally isolated, economically strangled, diplomatically erased. Let them starve. They said, "Let them crawl back. Let them beg." But Earth didn't beg. They responded 4 hours later, one line. "We advise you not to proceed." No threat, no plea. A warning. Velru laughed. "Not politely? That's all they sent?" "Humans bluff," said Threx, curling smugly into his chair. "Let's see what happens when the lights go out on the little blue rock." And then things started happening. But not to Earth. To the Council. First came the glitches, minor errors in data streams, security scans returning recursive false positives. Nothing serious. Just annoying. Then, entire sectors of the Galactic Archive went dark. Encryption keys melted. Translation protocols reverted. Thousands of years of galactic records rewritten. In Earth's language, on the main screen of the Council chamber, one phrase blinked in Terran Standard across every terminal. "You should have asked what we were listening to." Velru paled. "It's cyber warfare. Contain it." But they COULD and single quotes T. Every countermeasure failed, because Earth hadn't broken in. They'd already been inside. Their silence wasn't absence. It was presence, and then came the fleet data, Council military, ship schematics -classified. Battle strategies -exposed. AI vulnerabilities decoded and reorganized. By Earth. Broadcast back to every planetary system. And signed, courtesy of the species you tried to blackmail. Panic swallowed the room. "This is war," a delegate screamed. "No," whispered another. "This is humiliation." That's when the screens turned black again, and Earth responded. Not with words, with footage. Live stream. From inside the Grand Chamber. From now. They were watching themselves. From Earth. "Impossible," Velru hissed, looking up at the ceiling. "The corners. The lights." "How?" Then the voice came, not booming, not loud. Quiet. Controlled. Human. "We didn't want this. But if you threaten Earth again, we'll erase the concept of your council from history." The stream cut. The lights flickered. Silence settled like fog. Nobody laughed. And that was before Earth even responded. At 0300 Galactic Standard. The Netherian Observatory in Sector Delta 9 vanished. No detonation. No distress beacon. No trace. One moment it was cataloging deep space radiation. The next silence. Absolute. The kind that makes stars feel farther away. An hour later, sector net logs showed the observatory had never existed. No entry. No mission file. No architecture footprint. Just an empty patch of space. And in that space, a blinking data loop. One line. Ask us again who owns the dark. In the Galactic Council's war chamber, alarms pulsed red. Holograms glitched. Delegates shouted over each other. Even Velru had dropped the smug tone. "What is this?" she barked. Staring at the blank feed. No one answered, because no one could explain what was happening. Across the galaxy, things were disappearing. Archive nodes. Fleet registries. Defense. Platforms. Not destroyed, forgotten. Systems still physically existed, but their digital signatures had been stripped, rendered invisible to Council protocols. Every time someone tried to reinsert the data, the files would erase themselves and flash a short phrase. "You're not allowed to see this anymore." Even AI oversight units began to question reality. "They're not fighting us," muttered the Kalori chief of tech. "They're redacting us." Council fleets scrambled into motion, not to strike Earth, but to defend their own belief in structure. 17 fleets moved toward known Terran outposts. Not to destroy them. To see if they were still there. They weren't. Instead, ships found old Terran satellites, rusted, dark, outdated. But when scanned, they scanned back. Ships that got too close had their nav systems scrambled, their crew manifest logs rewritten with fictional people. One fleet opened fire on what they thought was a disguised human drone. It turned out to be their own supply ship, misidentified by Earth's false projections. They killed their own, and the Council began to panic. Not because they were losing ships, but because they were losing confidence. In what was real. In what they were seeing. And whether they were even the ones in control anymore. Velru demanded contact, direct line to Earth. She received it 3 minutes later, on a device that shouldn't have been on the Council's encrypted table. No signal, no light, just their. As if it had always been. She lifted it slowly, her voice brittle. "This is High Chancellor Velru of the Galactic Council. State your terms." A pause. Then a man's voice answered, older, hoarse, unimpressed. "You think this is about terms? This is your opportunity to de-escalate." No, his voice wasn't angry, wasn't warm. It felt like the sound metal makes before it bends. "This is your opportunity to realize what you just taught us." Velru frowned. "We are offering negotiation. You taught us that diplomacy is a currency to be counterfeited. That silence means weakness. That neutrality invites force. You refuse to cooperate. We refuse to kneel." Static. The kind that prickled inside your bones. Then the voice returned. "The Council blackmailed us. Threatened sanctions. Thought you were clever. Thought you were powerful." Another pause. "You're neither." Velru grit her teeth. "We will not be spoken to like this." Then the voice delivered something she never expected. Laughter. Dry. Slow. Cold. "You still think you have a choice." The device shut off. Velru hurled it across the room, but it didn't shatter. It vanished mid-air. Everyone saw it. Everyone heard it hum. And for the first time in memory, no one applauded her anger. Meanwhile, Earth moved without movement. No ships invaded. No troops landed. They didn't need to, because Earth wasn't waging war with force. They were waging war with relevance. Entire Council communications relays began returning to default protocols pre-unification code bases. Earth had once contributed to 300 years prior. Now, those baselines were turning on their creators. All command access reverted to Earth standard keys. Encryption cracked from within, and as each relay fell, Earth sent out a single phrase to the systems around it. "This is not a breach. This is a reset." Back on Earth, Admiral Ramai stood before a circular table inside a hollowed-out chamber beneath the Atlantic Trench. He wore no medals, no insignia, just a plain black uniform, wrinkled, comfortable. The Council around him, the real one, was silent. "You said this wouldn't go this far," one woman murmured. Her voice barely touched the steel walls. Ramai didn't look at her. They asked what would happen if we answered. And now? He turned to the hologlobe in the center of the table. It displayed the Council's reach, flickering like a dying star. He exhaled once. Now they find out what happens when we decide they don't get to ask anymore. The room stayed quiet, because they all understood the truth now. Humanity hadn't been preparing for war. They had been recording, watching, learning, waiting, and when the moment came, they simply played the tape back, in orbit around Ecker Station, the last Council bastion near Terran-adjacent space. A single Terran vessel appeared, not a dreadnought, not a supercarrier, just a research ship, unarmed, non-aggressive, its only distinguishing feature? A name painted across the hull in Earth Standard Script, Consequence. The fleet commander ordered it ignored. The ship didn't move, didn't scan, didn't blink. Then a data package dropped into every Council ship's feed. Encrypted. Urgency. Critical. Inside. Logs. From their own command. Recordings of meetings. Signed executive orders approving covert sabotage attempts against Earth 30 years prior. Orders long deleted, long buried, but Earth had them. Every one. Footage, documents, biometrics, audio, even. The discussions about how to cover it up. The fleet froze. Not from morality. From fear. Because if Earth had this, what didn't they have? And then came the voice, the same one from before. We don't need to strike your ships. We can strike your trust. And one by one, officers aboard the fleet began defecting, disabling their own engines, shutting down weapons, broadcasting apologies. The fleet collapsed without a shot fired, and the ship Consequence turned and drifted away, not victorious. Just finished. Back in the Grand Council chamber, the walls dim. No alarms. Just stillness. Chancellor Velru rose for what would be her last address. We underestimated them, she admitted. We thought strength was loud. That silence was fear. She looked to the hollow where the stars once shimmered above the ceiling. They were never silent. They were patient. The floor shook beneath her. And the chamber's lights died, not because Earth attacked, but because the Council itself had started crumbling from within. Delegates left, alliances broke, supply lines went cold. No one blamed Earth. Because now they knew the terrifying part wasn't Earth's retaliation. It was realizing Earth had already won before we started playing. And outside that chamber, in deep orbit, a line of Terran ships sat in still formation. UNMOVING. Untouchable. Unforgiving. But they didn't fire, because they didn't need to. They had done what Earth always did best. They ended the war by reminding the galaxy it had already lost. The first Council world to surrender wasn't one of the weak ones. It was Threxelon, founding member, naval superpower, home to the most advanced bioengineered fleets in the known galaxy. They didn't fall to war. They fell to a message. It arrived on their secure diplomatic relay at 2:31 local time. No encryption, no demands. Just a file labeled January Protocol, level red. Inside, it wasn't maps or threats. It was memories. HOLO-recordings of secret Threxelon trade deals. Conversations between military leaders mocking the Council, plotting to let Earth absorb the first strikes. Plans to betray the Alliance. After Earth was broken, one by one, those files went viral across Threxelon's own networks. Not from Earth. From their own people. Because Earth hadn't just collected dirt. They delivered it back to the people who deserved to see it most. Within hours, protests shattered the major cities. Command bunkers sealed. Soldiers walked off their posts. The planetary defense matrix collapsed, not from attack, but refusal. Threxelon's president made a final broadcast. We do not surrender to Earth. We surrender to the truth. She turned the screen black. And just like that, the first domino fell. It wouldn't be the last. Earth hadn't spoken again. No new transmissions. No ships entered hostile space. But the galaxy had gone very, very quiet. Dozens of council worlds. Severed diplomatic ties with each other. Accusations flew. Old betrayals resurfaced. Alliances crumbled. Enemies emerged from within, all because of a silence Earth had engineered over decades. Their AI hadn't disrupted the council systems. It had understood them. They didn't insert new code. They simply let old truths surface, and those truths were poisonous. Back on Earth, the man known only as Director Vale stood alone beneath the old Atlantic fortress 5 miles below sea level. In a command center no one remembered building. He didn't speak, didn't pace. Just listened. A technician. Behind him, young, voice shaking, asked, "How long do we keep going?" Vale's voice didn't rise. "Until they teach their children to never repeat this century." The tech swallowed. "You really think they'll remember?" Vale finally turned. His eyes weren't angry. Just tired. "They're not scared of what we've done. They're scared we did it all without ever raising our voice." In orbit around the fractured remains of the Council's outer armada, one final warfleet tried to form a defensive line. The Run? Vanguard. They hadn't defected. They hadn't retreated. They still believed in force. So when a single Terran vessel blinked into orbit, they didn't ask questions. They launched missiles, plasma, AI-guided hyperspeed kinetic rounds. All of it, straight at a single ship. Human Corvette Vessel 9. No counterattack. No evasive maneuvers. The weapon struck and passed through. No explosion. No feedback. No contact. Just passed right through. The ship like it wasn't. Even there. It wasn't cloaking. It wasn't phased. Shifted. It was something else. They scanned again and realized the vessel wasn't real. It was a recording. A light trace projection of a Terran Corvette's movement pattern from 50 years. Ugo broadcast like a ghost across space, complete with signature emissions and heat profiles, and they'd wasted their entire arsenal on it. Then a real Terran ship appeared. One message. This is what it looks like when you don't understand the rules. The Run Vanguard didn't fire again. They powered down. And the Terran ship left without a word, because they weren't teaching lessons. They were giving consequences. In the ruins of the Grand Council chamber, Chancellor Velru returned. Alone. No guards. No cameras. Just a datapad. She sat at the central podium. The walls cracked behind her. The stars distorted through broken glass. She opened the last transmission Earth had sent her. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't even a threat. It was a journal entry. A Terran commander. 30 years ago. We know they see us as backward, small, slow. They'll make demands. They'll threaten us. And if they cross the line, we won't need to strike them. We'll just show them who they really are. That'll be enough. She read it twice. Then again. And for the first time in her life, she whispered not to her council, not to the stars. To herself. I don't think we lost to humans. I think we lost to what they believed in. Then she placed the datapad down. And walked out. She would never be seen again. On Earth, the skies were calm, ships docked, defense platforms powered down. And in the silence of orbit, something ancient blinked to life. The Atlas node. A human AI, built generations ago, programmed to run one scenario. What if the galaxy tried to silence Earth? Its only command? Respond. It never needed to. Until now, but the war was already over. So it sent one final message, short, UNENCRYPTED. To everyone. Every species, every council fragment. Every outpost. This is what happens when silence is misunderstood. We didn't come to rule. We came to be left alone. You made a mistake. We corrected it. And then Earth stopped transmitting. Completely. The stars flickered, and the galaxy finally understood. Earth didn't win because they fought. Better. Earth won because they'd already rehearsed this war 1,000 times. In complete, terrifying silence. They called it the retraction plan, the last-ditch effort of a crumbling council. A desperate attempt to reclaim power not through war, but with apology, carefully worded broadcasts, public acts of humility, even offers of alliance. It was all too late, because Earth had already left the conversation. The broadcasts received. No reply. No signal, no acknowledgement. Not even static. It was like trying to shout into a black hole and expecting the void to feel guilty. That silence? It broke them faster than war ever could. On 12 former council homeworlds, revolts turned inward, not against Earth, but against their own leaders. The people remembered who started the war, who threatened Earth, who brought the galaxy to the edge, just to prove it could still lean on someone. They didn't want vengeance. They wanted to forget the council ever existed. In one archived newsfeed, a protester held up a sign in Earth Standard. They asked us to choose power or peace. We chose poorly. Back on Earth, there were no celebrations. No fireworks. No speeches. Just stillness. In an underground chamber beneath the polar ice, Director Veil stood alone, watching the stars from a black glass viewport no telescope could see through. The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. He exhaled. They thought this would make us proud, he murmured. It didn't. Behind him, a single technician sat at a cold console. Should we archive the final phase, sir? Veil nodded. No parades, no museums. We don't ever speak of this again. The technician hesitated. What if they forget? Veil turned. His voice was razor flat. They won't. In the outer rim, near the ruins of the first council relay, Earth ever infiltrated. A lone human beacon pulsed one final transmission. Not military. Not coded. It was a story. A simple one, titled, How We Were Asked to Kneel, and chose not to. It described everything. The blackmail. The silence. The remembering. And then it ended with a phrase historians would carve into stone, glass, alloy, and eventually into their own governments. This is not a warning. It's a conclusion. No signature. No source. But everyone knew where it came from. Centuries passed. Civilizations changed. New powers rose. But Earth never spoke again. Their ships drifted in deep orbit, powered down, asleep like titans in hibernation. Their borders remained fixed, not with weapons, but with reputation. Even pirates refused to enter Terran space, not because they feared attack, but because they feared being seen. On the 100th anniversary of the Council's fall, an alien historian dared to speak the question out loud during a planetary forum. Why didn't Earth conquer us? No one answered, but every species watching that broadcast remembered. Earth didn't want to conquer. They just wanted to end the game. Somewhere in deep space, a child asked her parent about Earth. Are they monsters? No. Are they gods? The parent hesitated. Then whispered, No. Just very, very patient. The stars above them flickered, and somewhere, far beyond the last signal, beyond the final orbit, a small Terran satellite pulsed once, then went quiet. Forever. Because Earth didn't need to say anything else. It had already been heard.